Hello. What is going on, you guys? It's yours truly, the real Sakurai here, and today, I have another video for you guys for the Sakurai clan, and this is another video about the Infinity War, and this is featuring Thanos himself. So basically, this is Infinity War, Thanos Explained, and another recommended video. So, without further ado, without further introductions, let's just get this underway. In a tree, and I try to make a fool out of she.
So, Thanos is the creation of Marvel and DC writer and artist Jim Starlin.
How about
And
that?
while Thanos is considered to be his most popular creation, I think it's also important to note here that Jim Starlin was also well known for revamping the characters Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock, who had previously been created by Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, Jack Kirby, in addition to either creating directly or assisting in creating Drax the Destroyer and Gamora. And in 2003, during an interview with Daniel Best, who at the time, and I believe continues to be, the owner and manager of Adeline Comics, a Southern Australian comic book store, he stated that his inspiration for Thanos kind of came to him during a psychology course in college while he was in the Navy, in addition to trying to get work in comic books. Now, he really kind of attributes Thanos to sort of anger management, but he doesn't really go into much more detail than that. What we do learn, though, is that he approaches Marvel, and Roy Thomas offers him an opportunity to write an issue of Iron Man due to the fact that Marvel is looking to rapidly expand their ranks in terms of artists, writers, and contributors to Marvel Comics. We see this ultimately playing out in the first appearance of Thanos in Iron Man issue number 55, and this is also our first introduction to the character Drax the Destroyer. So Iron Man issue number 55 is a interestingly done comic, and in fact it's actually done quite well considering that it's Jim Starlin's first run in Marvel Comics. The comic is written in such a way that it is both open-ended and self-contained. And I know it seems like a contradiction to say that, but what I mean is that we see that Thanos and Drax the Destroyer are introduced, but we also see that the comic is kind of left open-ended, to where it's entirely possible they could return. But if they weren't well received by comic book fans, then Marvel could have simply just never brought them back, and it would not have changed the continuity of the Iron Man comics or the Avengers. And so in that sense, it's really just a chance for Jim Starlin to demonstrate his abilities to write a good story and to create new characters in a way that could intrigue Marvel comic fans, and to see whether or not these characters were done well enough that people would want to see them return. So, the comic opens up with Drax the Destroyer warning Iron Man of an impending threat called the Blood Brothers, but we see that Iron Man is already engaged in combat with these two villains. Iron Man is overpowered and is taken to a fortress somewhere on Earth, and then we kind of switch to the perspective of Drax the Destroyer. And Drax the Destroyer takes us on a journey of sorts, where he gives us a very limited backstory to both himself and Thanos. And the reason why I say this is limited is because we will see, due to the popularity of both of these characters, that in subsequent comics their backstories will be expanded on quite a bit, and we'll learn quite a lot about both of these individuals, although in this video we're going to be focusing mainly on Thanos. We see that Thanos, along with his brother Eros, are the children of a being named Mentor. And Mentor is the de facto ruler, basically, of the moon Titan, one of the moons orbiting Saturn. And they live as a very, very peaceful race. It is a very lush environment, a very lush culture that is housed below the surface within a computer or a massive machine called Isaac. And as he's described to us, Isaac is just as much of a servant as a mentor to the people of Titan.
Oh,
Now we
wow.
see that Thanos is exiled from the Moon Titan due to the fact that he had attempted to usurp his father's power by bringing weaponry to a planet that had none. Now, the goal of his father in exiling Thanos was to help him come to terms with the peaceful nature of their race, but we see the exact opposite happens. And in
Right.
turn, Thanos returns to Titan in the intention of destroying not only his entire civilization, but being the last being left, and then to bestow himself or to establish himself as the ruler of the planet or of the moon Titan. We see that in the conflict, Mentor enlists the aid of Kronos. And if you recall our discussion about cosmic entities, we talked about how Kronos is one of the cosmic entities. And we see that Kronos is the one responsible for the creation of Drax the Destroyer. Now, we see that Drax the Destroyer is designed for the purpose of tracking down and destroying Thanos. And this is a very important aspect of Drax the Destroyer because this is a part of his character that will never change. His inherent ability or his base power is to always know where Thanos is at, and depending on the circumstances, to have enough power to at the very least challenge him or to hold him off, if not destroy him entirely.
Wow,
Now we see
really?
that Thanos and Drax the Destroyer engage in combat, and the planet on which they're fighting is basically destroyed, and Drax the Destroyer is weakened. In his weakened state, he is taken by Thanos back to his base on Earth and is held prisoner. Now, we eventually catch up with the current set of events that are taking place on Earth, and we see that Tony Stark is being taken to, I don't know, some kind of location within this compound on the planet Earth. And we see that Drax the Destroyer is attempting to communicate with Tony Stark to tell him where he is imprisoned at. We see that Tony Stark overpowers the Blood Brothers and flees to help Drax the Destroyer escape. But in the attempt, he encounters Thanos. Now, this is the first main full body appearance that we see Thanos in comic books. And it's very important that you guys kind of keep this in the back of your heads. And the reason why is because Thanos is very, very small, relatively
Yes.
speaking, to how we recall him in the Marvel Comics. And the basis for this is because this is how Jim Starlin initially envisioned Thanos, as a person whose physical stature was on par with Tony Stark and Thor and those guys. But when the comic was released, Roy Thomas advised Jim Starlin to beef the character up, that if Thanos was going to be as formidable of a villain as Jim Starlin had intended him to be,
Mm-hmm.
then he needed to be larger than life. And so over the publication history of Marvel Comics, we will see that Thanos will become quite a large individual in terms of his physical stature. We see that Tony Stark, along with Drax the Destroyer, are freed with the aid of Mentor, and they take on Thanos. But then we learn that Thanos, as he appears, is actually a robot. We see that the base is set for self-destruction, and Tony Stark and Drax the Destroyer escape before being killed. We see them kind of shake hands and come to the understanding that it's entirely possible Thanos could return, but he may not, and then they part their separate ways. Now this brings an end to Iron Man issue number 55.
Hmm. That's interesting.
So Thanos reappears in Captain Marvel issues number 26 through 33, I think. And for the remainder of this video, in order to save time, we're going to do a summary of sorts over these particular storylines where he appears, just because they are very, very in-depth. And even just a discussion alone on one of these videos could run us about 15 or 20 minutes, so we're not going to do a huge hour and a half long discussion. Over the course of these issues in Captain Marvel, we learn a couple things. One of the first things we learn is that Thanos himself has actually now appeared on the planet Earth, where in Iron Man issue number 55, it was simply just a robot. We also learn that Thanos is far stronger than his robot counterpart that appeared in Iron Man. And we also learned that Thanos is on the planet Earth in pursuit of the Cosmic Cube. We also see that Thanos is being accompanied by someone who is cloaked and never talks. Now, this person is very important, and over the course of these issues, we learn that this person is Mistress Death, and that Thanos is in fact in love with Mistress Death, and simply wants to gain her affections. Now, this is extremely important when it comes to the life of Thanos, and the reason why is because virtually every campaign that Thanos goes on, the Infinity Gauntlet, his pursuit of the heart of the universe, These are all done in order to gain the affections of Mistress Death. And as the avatar of Mistress Death, as he will be bestowed in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, we see that he is basically the representation of death. And so his goal is to eradicate all life. Now, we don't necessarily see that playing out until the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, but during the Captain Marvel comics, his pursuit of the Cosmic Cube is twofold. The first part is to simply just gain power. He has a lust for power and omnipotence. The second is to give the planet Earth as a gift to the Mistress Death, meaning that he is simply going to eliminate all life on planet Earth, and then contribute that as a gift to Mistress Death herself. We see that he launches a campaign against Captain Marvel called the Kree Crusher, I think, and it's called this because Captain Marvel is himself a Kree. And we see that Captain Marvel is engaged in combat with a multitude of superheroes, Ronan the Accuser, villains and superheroes, Ronan the Accuser, Namor the Submariner, and he swiftly defeats almost all of them. But we see him allying himself with the Thing of the Fantastic Four and confronting Thanos. Now, Captain Marvel is forcefully returned to his alter ego, Rick Jones, and the Thing is swiftly defeated. By swiftly, I mean he's defeated with a simple touch of Thanos. We also see that with the assistance of the Avengers, Captain Marvel is able to confront Thanos once Thanos has defeated Drax the Destroyer a second time and gained the Cosmic Cube. Now, once he gains the Cosmic Cube, he really kind of becomes power drunk, and he makes himself one with the universe after having defeated the cosmic entity Kronos. We see that due to a series of circumstances and over a course of a set of events, Captain Marvel challenges Thanos to confront him without using his godlike powers. And the reason he does this is because there is a point in the comics in the Cosmic Cube storyline over these issues in Captain Marvel where the Cosmic Cube is lost. Captain Marvel finds the Cosmic Cube, but Thanos had drained the powers of the Cosmic Cube and imbued himself with those powers, which is what allowed him to become one with the universe. By challenging Thanos to confront him without his godlike powers, Thanos is forced to rechannel these energies back into the Cosmic Cube. At this point, Captain Marvel destroys the Cosmic Cube, and Thanos is left without these powers.
Okay.
So Thanos reappears in Warlock issue number 2, and in order to understand this portion of the video, I would suggest that if you haven't already, go back and watch our discussion about Adam Warlock in addition to our discussion about alternate realities, because those two things are very important in order to understand this part of the video. But as we see, Warlock is engaged in combat, or at the very least is met with the Magus, and Thanos appears. And Thanos, in addition to Adam Warlock, are able to thwart the efforts of the Magus. But it's very interesting in terms of how this happens. There is a point whereby, when Thanos appears, he and Warlock, in addition to Gamora and Pip the Troll, escape. And when they escape, Adam Warlock, confronts Thanos and asks him why it is that he is helping him. It really just can't be out of the goodness of his heart. And Thanos states that he is in pursuit of the soul gem that Adam Warlock possesses. In order for him to acquire this soul gem, Adam Warlock has to succeed. And he also takes Adam Warlock to a time machine called Knowledge One. And what we learn is that Adam Warlock travels into the future and is able to stop this rift, so to speak, is able to nip the point in the bud by which he becomes the Magus. And by doing so, the Magus ceases to exist as he's engaging in combat with Thanos. Thanos is ultimately successful along with Adam Warlock, and it's believed that Thanos is able to absorb the energies of the soul gem that the Magus possessed, and as a result, is one step closer towards the Infinity Gauntlet.
The Infinity Quest. Okay.
So after the events of Warlock issue number 2, in addition to a couple other smaller storylines that had taken place, Thanos had presumably been killed, and he had disappeared from Marvel Comics entirely for almost 25 years.
Jesus.
And in 1990, with the Thanos Quest issue number 1, we see Thanos return to Marvel Comics, and it is done in spectacular fashion. We see that the cosmic entity Death had sensed an imbalance in the universe. Something was amiss, and it's presumed that this was because Thanos, despite the fact that he was destructive, had more or less kind of become a necessity in the universe. Much like Galactus and the Celestials, with regards to their relationship in the universe, Thanos was the embodiment of what it meant to destroy, what it meant to be Death. And so Death had revived him, had brought him back to life, and had tasked him with the open-ended assignment of fixing this imbalance. What the imbalance wasn't specified to Thanos, and so in this instance, he's really kind of a guy trying to do the best that he can, although he does it in a pretty terrible way. We also see that Drax the Destroyer, who had previously been killed, was revived by Master Order and Lord Chaos, and was tasked with the assignment of locating and destroying Thanos. The Thanos Quest comics, both issues 1 and 2, take us on a journey as Thanos comes across some of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Comics, the Elders of the Universe, the Champion, and he is able to defeat them and attain their Infinity Gems. And with the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, we see this coming to fruition, and we see just what happens when Thanos is able to acquire the Infinity Gauntlet and able to use it for his own purposes.
Infinity Gauntlet.
So the Infinity Gauntlet is considered by many to be the crowning achievement of Jim Starlin's work at Marvel Comics, and I would go as far as to say that it's probably one of the greatest stories ever told. And in the Infinity Gauntlet, we see some great characters returning. We see the Silver Surfer returning, which was very exciting for a lot of people because as one of the original villains, so to speak, of the Fantastic Four, who of course had turned into a good guy by the end of the issue or the end of the series, we had seen that the Silver Surfer had disappeared from Marvel Comics for quite some time. And so to see him return was welcomed by a lot of people.
Yeah, because
We saw
people
Adam
love
Warlock
Silver
return
Surfer.
to the scene. And Adam Warlock, at the end of the Warlock storylines, the Warlock comics, had been confined to the Soul Gem. And Marvel had kind of set it up with Adam Warlock's character in a very interesting way. Adam Warlock would only really return under circumstances that were absolutely dire, and the Infinity Gauntlet was one of those circumstances. As we see with the story as the comic opens up, we see that Thanos is alongside Mephisto. And Mephisto is kind of the Satan version of, or I guess a version of Satan in Marvel Comics. And we see that Thanos has captured the Infinity Gauntlet and has been elevated to the level of omnipotence. We don't really see exactly what all he's capable of, but we see towards the end of the comic that he is virtually unchallenged by anybody in the Marvel Comics
Yep.
that is confined to our 616 universe.
Yep.
We see that the Silver Surfer arrives to warn Doctor Strange of the impending threat that Thanos has returned and has gained the Infinity Gauntlet. We also see that the Silver Surfer in a flashback, alongside Drax the Destroyer, had met with Adam Warlock in the Soul Gem and had warned Adam Warlock of what was happening and enlisted his aid. And of course we see Adam Warlock along with Gamora and Pip the Troll coming back to our reality in order to assist in stopping Thanos. We see that Thanos, in an effort to use his power to demonstrate his love for Mistress Death, begins making a series of events take place. Of course,
Yep.
he creates this kind of, I wouldn't go as far as to say tomb, but I would say shrine
temple,
would be the
a
best
shrine.
description. He creates the shrine for Madame Death in the middle of space. But again, she seems unsatisfied and distant with what he's done so far. We see that Nebula, who had previously been killed by Thanos, has been returned to life, albeit in a zombified and decrepit state in a shadow of her former self. We also see that Thanos wipes out half the life in the sentient universe, or I'm sorry, half the sentient life in the universe with a snap of his fingers. And this is where the storyline gets very intriguing. And ultimately, we see that by Thanos destroying half the life in the universe, that a large percentage of some of our favorite Earthbound characters are gone. And so almost all the X-Men are gone, almost all the Avengers are gone.
Yep.
And so really, we see that Adam Warlock, along with Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange, are able to assemble this kind of ragtag group of villains and superheroes from the planet Earth, along with other individuals from across the across the universe, in order to try to stop Thanos and bring an end to his schemes. We also see that Adam Warlock has assembled an army of cosmic entities: Galactus, Master Order, Lord Chaos, Eternity, and they have all come together for the efforts of stopping Thanos, although we do not see Eternity until much later on. As the story continues, we see that Thanos basically uses his abilities to stop everyone that opposes him with the utmost of ease. We see that the Incredible Hulk is virtually powerless against him. We see that Drax the Destroyer is powerless against him. There's really no one that can stand in his way. And once almost all of the earthbound and mortal forces from across the universe are thwarted, then we see the cosmic entities step in. And again, the cosmic entities, just like everybody else, are thwarted just as easily until Thanos comes toe-to-toe with Eternity. And because Thanos is the equivalent of Eternity, albeit in a mortal form at this point, he is basically on par and is able to thwart Eternity and take up his role as the representation of all Eternity within our Earth 616 universe. And this is when we see the storyline come to an end, or kind of wind down and eventually disappear. We see that as a result of Thanos becoming one with the universe, he leaves his physical body in a very vulnerable state. At this point, virtually all forces that are opposed to him have either been captured and held in stasis, as we see with the cosmic entities,
Yep.
or they have been eliminated entirely, or rematerialized, or in some way rendered incapable of challenging him, as we see with many of the earthbound forces. And so what we actually see is that, of all people, Nebula takes the Infinity Gauntlet off of his arm and grants herself with the power of the universe. We see that Thanos is reduced back to his normal state, and with Adam Warlock's appeal to the heroes to combat Nebula, we see that Nebula has now become the main villain in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. Ultimately, Nebula is defeated, and the Infinity Gems are taken out of the Infinity Gauntlet. And at this point, we see Adam Warlock form a group called the Infinity Watch, to which Thanos will be a part of. So Thanos' abilities are quite profound and quite powerful when you look at him,
Yeah, he's OP
even
as fuck.
before the Infinity Gauntlet, and especially after the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos is a member of a race called the Titanian Eternals, and while these individuals are quite powerful, Thanos, being a mutant among these peoples, have powers that exceed even their abilities. And so he is really kind of a man unto himself in terms of...
Pause. So he's a mutant among his entire race? Because they already strong as hell. So he's a mutant of that? Continue.
what it is that he can do in comparison to his own alien race. Now, when you compound this with the fact that up until the Infinity Gauntlet, he had empowered himself even further by use of technological advancements and various other modifications, then he became quite formidable. And when he was revived by death prior to the Infinity Gauntlet, he had his abilities enhanced even further along the line, in addition to, I believe, being granted immortality. Now, from this point, Thanos became virtually unrivaled. And of course, with the Infinity Gauntlet, he was rivaled by nobody within our Earth 616 universe.
Jesus
But even for the
Christ.
most strongest of foes, the Incredible Hulk, for example, or the Juggernaut, Thanos is able to overpower them, although it may take some effort on his part, and more so than he would normally have to exert against other foes. We also see that Thanos is incredibly durable in terms of the amount of damage that he can take in and keep moving forward. For example, he withstood a full blast of Black Bolt's voice. And for those of you guys who are unaware, Black Bolt is the leader of a group called the Inhumans, and actually becomes the leader of the alien race, the Kree. And Black Bolt, with his voice, it's quite powerful depending on how he chooses to project it. If he whispers, he can annihilate a human being, an entire block of a city. If he screams, he can destroy planets or even stars. So, in order for him, with Thanos being able to withstand virtually the full brunt of Black Bolt's voice within reason, considering they were on the planet Earth, I believe, that's quite profound when you look at the amount of damage that he can withstand.
Yeah, no
But
shit.
I would go as far as to say that despite the physical abilities that Thanos may possess, his most powerful and most beneficial attribute is his intellect, because he is a genius in virtually everything,
That's what makes
even
it
forms
even
of
more
science that
scary.
far exceed anything that we're capable of on the planet Earth. And so while you have people like Reed Richards and Peter Parker and Bruce Banner, who are the foremost authorities in their respective fields of science,
Yeah,
their knowledge is far surpassed by Thanos.
right.
And so, in addition to this, he is a master strategist. He is able to predict the moves of people in conflict before they even choose to make it. And so, he's always one step ahead. He's always planning and always scheming in terms of his implementations of his goals and his ideas in the Marvel Universe.
Oh my God. That's scary. That's really scary.
So the question becomes, what does Marvel have in store for Thanos? What does the Marvel Cinematic Universe have in store for the villain Thanos? Well, to me, there really seem to be some obvious fingers being pointed to the Infinity Gauntlet. We see the Infinity Gems already in existence, and
Yep.
it would really be disappointing if the Marvel Cinematic Universe introduced the concept of Infinity Gems only to let us know that Thanos is going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but didn't actually have him capture the Infinity Gauntlet. I would be vastly disappointed. But there are some great storylines with Thanos. There's Marvel The End, whereby Thanos captures the heart of the universe, and by doing so becomes one with the universe himself. But I don't really feel like that's a storyline that the Marvel Cinematic Universe would go with, because you're talking about a character who becomes so omnipotent that he's actually beyond anything he had when he was in possession of the Infinity Gauntlet, and would virtually be unrivaled by anybody, because in Marvel The End, Thanos wasn't necessarily defeated. He just simply saw no point in maintaining his power and gave it up on his own. There was really no one there to stop him. He was kind of coached along by Adam Warlock, but nonetheless, he gave it up by himself. No one was able to stop him. He simply just ended the universe.
He just said, "Fuck it.
For me,
I don't want to do this no more."
Thanos is really a character who I think should be done in a way to where his intellect is respected.
Yeah.
That he's really not some kind of mind-numbing, blundering fool who's able to
He
beat
isn't at
people
all.
up, but just mutters one-liners and just throws out stupid catchphrases here and there. A character who would be on par with Abomination from The Incredible Hulk. It'd be wildly disappointing to see that, because Thanos is an incredibly powerful villain, and being so powerful, he has an intelligence to go along with it. And I think that Marvel has really kind of put an emphasis on having more well-rounded characters. Having characters who aren't simply isolated to one attribute of their personality,
Right.
but to having as many attributes of their personalities included in the characters as they're written, so that we get a full understanding of them as a whole, and they're not simply written off as caricatures with silly ideas. I'm really hoping that Thanos is continued in this trend that Marvel is doing with their characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I hope so
And
too.
ultimately, I think that Thanos is going to be a great inclusion in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Of course, we know that he's going to be the centerpiece, so to speak, in Guardians of the Galaxy. And we know that he is going to have involvement further along the line in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so for me, it's really kind of interesting to see how this plays out. And it's really kind of interesting to see how it is that Thanos is going to be portrayed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace. Now, the way that the Nova Corps is set up is really kind of...
Well, thank you for that, Comics Explained. As always, you give out the needed information that we all need to hear. But yeah, that's something that I always speculated and I've seen, but he basically, summed it all up. Thanos is... I'm gonna get bashed for saying this. He's the god of destruction. I don't have any other word to go with that. It's just like, even without the doggone gauntlet, he's powerful as crap. If he can withstand an earth-shattering scream, if he can withstand a planet-shattering scream, if he can take on eternity itself and become it, Now y'all know the reason why at the end of our videos when we talk about I talk about Thanos and Infinity War, I usually play his Marvel vs. Capcom Thanos theme, because if I didn't, I would be highly upset, and it would be a disservice on Thanos, because that man is the shit. He literally is the shit. He literally is. The only thing that bothers me, well, it doesn't bother me, but it makes me feel bad, and I feel him on this point, is that because he's trying to court a woman who doesn't want anything to do with him. He does all this shit, and she doesn't even speak to him. I felt that before. I want y'all to know that I felt that so many times before, and I feel his pain. I feel his doggone pain. Even though the man is a doggone lunatic, but I feel his pain, okay? I feel what he was going through. Shoot, you take on the entire galaxies, and you have the power to destroy everything by the snap of your finger, and the girl that you like is not saying a damn thing to you, just looking at you like, you better get the fuck away from me, or whatever. I feel that pain. I feel it so much. And that's probably why I respect Thanos a lot, because even though he went through that, he made his own woman. But that didn't last long. But still, he made his own woman and made the best out of that shit. All I'm saying is, Thanos, you are the greatest villain in Marvel, in my book, in my mind. There's probably others. Killmonger comes second. I don't know much. I don't know if Magneto or freaking what's that doggone guy's name? God, I forgot it. I forgot it that quick. I forgot it. The Mandarin. Yeah, there it is. I don't know if the Mandarin comes next or if Magneto comes next, but whichever one. And then there's Doctor Doom. I can't forget about him. I cannot forget about Doctor Doom. You cannot forget about Doctor Doom, because he's just as powerful. So yeah. Thanos, Doctor Doom, probably the Mandarin, and then Killmonger, and then Magneto. Whichever order that is, whichever order. Y'all can decipher that in the comment section down below. But as such, that's all that's going to be for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out Comics Explained and a lot of his content. There's videos on there that I haven't even seen or reacted to. So you guys go check that out and do more research than I have done. Share this video if you would like on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can like the video if you choose to do so, and follow me in the links down in the description down below. As such, this has been the real Sakurai, and I'll see you later, Sakurai Nation. Peace. Well, Sakurai Clan, not Sakurai Nation. You know what I'm saying. I'm out here.